The bell over the diner door hadn't finished ringing when the woman in the linen blazer announced, loud enough for the whole counter to hear, that she quit. I am done. Do you understand me? Every nanny before me lasted longer than they should have, and I lasted 3 days, and I am done. She wasn't shouting at the room. She was shouting into a phone pressed white-knuckled to her ear, backing out the way she'd come, and the man she left behind didn't chase her. He just stood in the doorway of Gloria's roadside with a small girl's hand in his, summer light pouring gold around them both, and looked like a man who had run entirely out of nannies and was beginning to suspect he'd run out of something larger. Maren Cole noticed the child first. She always noticed the children. The girl was maybe 6, in a dress that cost more than Maren's car payment, white sandals, a ribbon coming loose at the back of her hair. She wasn't crying. That was the thing that caught Maren and held her. A kid that small in the middle of a grown-up storm, and not a single tear. Not even the wobble that comes before one. The girl just stared at the floor tiles, counting something only she could see, while the air conditioner rattled overhead and the ceiling fans pushed the smell of bacon grease and hot griddle and the sweetness of melting blueberry pie around the room. 2? Maren called, grabbing menus before the man could change his mind and leave. Booth or counter? He blinked at her like the question was in another language. Up close he was younger than the silver at his temples suggested, with a jaw that hadn't been shaved that morning, and a watch that probably had its own insurance policy. His suit was wrong for July, charcoal and heavy, the suit of a man who dressed in air-conditioned rooms and walked through air-conditioned hallways and never once let the heat touch him. Booth, he said. Please. By the window. She seated them by the window, where the glass was warm to the touch and the parking lot shimmered. The girl slid in without being told and folded her hands in her lap, prim as a churchgoer. Her father lowered himself across from her like the booth might collapse. Coffee, he said. Black, and, he looked at his daughter. June, sweetheart, what would you like? The girl said nothing. June, his voice didn't rise. If anything, it went flatter, more careful, the way you'd talk crossing thin ice. The lady's waiting. Nothing, just the counting eyes, moving now over the laminated menu, over the little jukebox selector bolted to the wall, over the sugar packets fanned in their chrome holder. Maren had seen this before. Not the silk dress or the watch, but the quiet. She'd grown up 2 streets from a woman who used to mind half the block's kids, and she'd learned early that some children went loud when the world cracked under them, and some went so quiet you could lose them entirely if you weren't paying attention. Tell you what, Maren said, crouching down so she was level with the table instead of looming over it. She didn't look at June. She looked at the sugar packets. I'm not going to make you order anything. Ordering's the worst. Somebody hands you a whole list of food and says, pick right now. Pick in front of everybody. She started lining the sugar packets up by color. White, then brown, then the pink ones. But I'll let you in on a secret. Gloria back there makes exactly one thing better than anybody in the whole state, and it's not even on the menu, so nobody ever orders it. So she gets sad. A pause. The girl's eyes had stopped counting the room and started counting the sugar packets. You don't want Gloria to be sad, Maren said. It's summer. Sad's a winter thing. The smallest sound, not a word. A breath that almost had shape. The man across the table went very still, the way a person goes still when they don't want to scare off a bird. It's $silver pancakes, Maren went on, conversational, still not looking up, still stacking sugar. Little ones, tiny as buttons. She does a smiley face in blueberries, but only if you don't ask. Because if you ask, it's babyish, and if you don't ask, it's a surprise, and surprises are allowed. She finally glanced at June. Quick, light, no pressure in it. I'm going to go tell her 2 grown-up coffees and 1 secret. That okay? June looked at the sugar packets. Then she reached out 1 small finger and moved the pink one to the front of the line. Pink it is, Maren said, and stood. and walked away before anybody could turn it into a bigger thing than it was. Behind the pass-through, Gloria was leaning on the steel counter with her arms crossed and an expression Maren knew too well. Gloria Reyes had run this diner off the county road for 22 years, had buried a husband and raised 3 sons over that griddle, and could read a dining room like a fortune teller reads a palm. "You're making me make the button pancakes," Gloria said. It wasn't a question, one order. For the man in the funeral suit, or the baby who hasn't blinked since she walked in. For the kid. Maren clipped the ticket to the wheel. "And don't call it a funeral suit where she can hear you." Gloria's eyes flicked past Maren's shoulder to the booth, and something in her face shifted, went softer under the flour dust. "That one's been somewhere bad," she murmured. "I seen that quiet before. Had it on my middle boy the year his daddy left." She cracked an egg one-handed, then pointed the shell at Maren like a verdict. "And that man don't know what to do with her any more than a bear knows what to do with a teacup. Watch. He'll try to buy her something. You don't know that. Honey, I've been feeding rich men breakfast since before you were born. They all do the same thing when they're scared. They reach for the wallet." Gloria poured batter in neat coins across the flat top, and they hissed and bubbled in the heat. "Mark me." Maren carried the coffees back. The man had his phone out, thumb moving fast, jaw tight, and June was watching a fly bump against the warm window glass, with the focus of a scientist. He set the phone down when Maren arrived, screen up, and Maren caught the edge of a text thread before he turned it over. "Agency. We regret. No further candidates." And the name at the top. Hale Family Office, with a little blue check mark like even his phone knew he was important. "The agency's out of people," he said, and she realized he was saying it to her. A stranger with a coffee pot. Because there was apparently no one else in his entire gold-plated life to say it to. 6 in 4 months. There's a note now. In my file. Placement not recommended, he laughed. Except it wasn't a laugh. It was the shape of one with nothing inside. They blacklisted me. From nannies. Maybe the nannies were the problem, Maren said, setting down his coffee. He looked up at her sharply, and for a second she thought she'd pushed too far, gone too familiar with a man whose watch had insurance. Then his shoulders came down half an inch. They were excellent, he said. On paper. On paper. Maren nodded at June, who had given up on the fly and was now arranging her own sugar packets, pink ones first, the way Maren had left them. "She doesn't look like a paper kind of kid to me." The pancakes came out tiny and golden, stacked like coins, and there in the middle, unasked for, a small shy face made of blueberries. Maren slid the plate in front of June without ceremony, and topped off the coffee that didn't need topping off, just to have a reason to linger one more second. June stared at the plate. Her father stared at June. The whole booth held its breath. The girl picked up a single pancake the size of a quarter, considered it from several angles, and ate it, then another. She didn't smile, but the line of her small shoulders, which had been up around her ears since the woman in the blazer slammed out the door, came down, the way Maren's whole life she'd watched tight things come loose when somebody finally fed them. The man put his hand over his mouth. When he took it away, he had himself back under control, but his eyes were too bright. "She hasn't eaten in front of anyone but me in 2 months, he said quietly. "Not since," he stopped. Started over, smoothing it flat. "Not in a while. Pancakes are easy to eat in front of people," Maren said. "They don't expect anything back." He looked at her then like he was actually seeing her. The apron, the order pad, the name tag that said Maren in Gloria's husband's old marker pen. The sneakers gone grey at the toes, and something complicated crossed his face that she couldn't name and didn't try to. "What did you do?" he asked. "Just now. With the sugar." "Nothing. I didn't ask her for anything." Maren shrugged. "Everybody's been asking her for things. Smile. Talk. Eat. Be okay. That's a lot of asking for somebody that small. She tucked the pot against her hip. Sometimes you just gotta sit next to a person and stack sugar till they decide you're not gonna grab at them. He was quiet. Outside, a delivery truck rumbled past, and the warm glass buzzed faintly with it, and the jukebox in the corner clicked through to something slow and old. "I'm Julian Hale," he said, and put out his hand across the table, over his daughter's plate of tiny pancakes, like the introduction couldn't wait for a better moment. "Maren." She shook it. His hand was cold from the air conditioning. Hers was warm from the coffee pot. "Cole. Maren Cole." He said it back like he was filing it somewhere he wouldn't lose it. "Do you have children of your own?" "No," she straightened, suddenly aware of the other tables, of Gloria's eyes on her back, of the table of road trippers in booth 4 who'd been waiting on their check. "I've just got a lot of cousins and a long memory. Enjoy the pancakes. Wave if you need me." She left before the conversation could become anything. That was the trick with the booth by the window people, the ones whose grief came dressed in good clothes. You gave them one true thing, and then you walked away. Because if you stood there too long, they started to think you were the answer to something, and you weren't. You were a waitress with a coffee pot and a double shift, and a landlord who'd already texted twice that week. But she felt his eyes on her the whole way to booth 4. He came back the next morning, which she did not expect. He came back alone, which she expected even less. Maren was wiping down the counter at the lull between the breakfast rush and the lunch crowd, the fans turning slow overhead. The door propped open to let in the smell of hot asphalt and cut grass from the field across the road. The little radio behind the register was playing a ball game nobody was listening to. And there in the doorway, framed in white July light, stood Julian Hale in a different heavy suit, holding a leather folder against his chest like a shield. "Miss Cole." "We open for lunch in 20 minutes. She didn't stop wiping. "Coffee's fresh if you want to wait. Kid's not with you. June is at home. With my mother." He said it the way other people said, with a babysitter from a horror movie. He crossed to the counter and stood across from her, and up close in the daylight she could see he hadn't slept, the kind of not sleeping that lives under the eyes and won't be hidden by money. She ate this morning. "Eggs." She pointed at the carton, and she ate them. My housekeeper nearly fainted. "Good. Eggs are a good sign." Maren wrung the rag into the bucket. "What do you want, Mr. Hale?" "Julian." "What do you want, Julian?" He set the leather folder on the counter and opened it, and Maren felt her stomach drop before she even read a word, because she knew the shape of what was coming the way you know the shape of weather. There was a single page inside, dense with paragraphs, and a line at the bottom for a signature, and a number printed halfway down with more zeros on it than she'd seen on a paper that had anything to do with her. "I'd like to offer you a position," he said. "My daughter's nanny. Live in. I've had my office draft terms. The salary is..." He turned the page toward her, tapped the number. "I think you'll find it more than fair. There's a residence on the property, health coverage, a vehicle, whatever you need." The number sat there in the heat between them. It was, Maren did the math fast, more than she'd made in the last 3 years stacked together, and it landed in her chest like an insult. "You don't know me," she said. "I know my daughter ate pancakes in a public restaurant for the first time since the spring." His voice didn't waver. "I know 6 trained professionals couldn't manage that, and you did it in 4 minutes with a coffee pot and some sugar. I'm a man who recognizes results, Miss Cole. I pay for them." That's the thing. She slid the page back across the counter, careful, like she was returning something she didn't want her fingerprints on. "You can't pay for it. The thing I did. It's not a service. I felt sorry for a sad little girl and I knew a trick, that's all. You can't put that on a contract, and you sure can't put a vehicle on it. Everyone has a price." He said it not unkindly, almost gently, the way you'd state a law of physics to a child. "I'm not insulting you. I'm respecting you enough to to skip the part where I'm a person? Maren put both hands flat on the counter. Across the diner, Gloria had gone very quiet by the pass-through, the way she did when she was listening hard and pretending not to. Mr. Hale, Julian, I've waited tables for 11 years. You know what I've learned? You can always tell the people who think money's a language everybody speaks. They walk in talking it real loud, and they can't figure out why nobody talks it back. For a moment he just looked at her, the folder open between them, the ball game murmuring on the radio, a fly drawing lazy circles under the fan. Frankly, came a voice from the open door, crisp as ice in a glass. I told him this was beneath us. Maren looked up. A woman stood in the doorway now, where Julian had stood, and she did not belong to the diner, or the road, or the field of cut grass behind her. She belonged to the cool dim inside of expensive places. She was perhaps 70, in pale summer silk and pearls the size of tea, her white hair set in a way that took a person and an appointment, and she surveyed Gloria's roadside, the chrome napkin holders, the pie case, Maren's grey sneakers, with the patient distaste of a woman cataloguing everything she would never touch. "Mother," Julian said, and the temperature of the whole room changed. "You left me in that car with the child for 11 minutes, the woman said, gliding in this heat, to come and recruit waitstaff. Frankly, Julian, if your father could see the family office drafting employment contracts for diner girls, Vivian, just the name." He didn't raise his voice, but his knuckles had gone pale around the edge of the folder. Maren straightened her apron. "Coffee, ma'am? It's fresh." Vivian Hale turned the full force of her attention on Maren for the first time, a slow up and down that priced everything and found it wanting. "I don't drink it after 10. A beat. You're the one who fed her the little pancakes. I'm the one. She wouldn't take so much as a grape from a woman with 3 letters after her name and a degree in early childhood from a school you've heard of." Vivian's mouth tightened. It was, Maren realized with a jolt, not contempt, or not only contempt. Underneath it, buried deep and furious, was something that looked almost like fear. "And she ate pancakes for you. A stranger. In a roadhouse." "Kids don't read Ursums," Maren said. "No," Vivian agreed coldly. "They don't read anything yet, do they? That's rather the trouble." And there it was again, the crack in the ice, gone as fast as it showed. She turned to her son. "The child is melting in the car, Julian. Whatever you've come to do it or don't, but I will not have her sitting in this heat because you've developed a sudden interest in the working poor." Maren's jaw set. But before she could say anything she'd regret, the small bell over the door gave its tired ring, and everybody turned. June Hale stood in the doorway. She'd gotten out of the car by herself. She had her loose ribbon in one hand, and her white sandals were dusty from the parking lot, and she'd walked, alone, across a strange lot in the July sun, into a strange diner, and she walked now, past her grandmother, past her father, past the leather folder and the number with all its zeros, straight to Maren, and stopped, and held up the ribbon. The whole room went silent. Even the radio seemed to hush. June didn't speak. She just held up the ribbon, and looked at Maren with those grave counting eyes, and waited. Maren crouched down to her level, slow, the way you approach something that might startle. "You want me to fix it?" June nodded. One small nod. The first thing Maren had ever seen her ask for. "Turn around then. Button." And June turned around, and presented the back of her head, and stood patient and trusting, while a waitress she'd met once retied the ribbon, and over the child's head, Maren watched Julian Hale's face come apart and put itself back together, and watched Vivian Hale press 2 fingers to her pearls, like a woman steadying herself against a wall. There, Maren smoothed the bow. Good as new. Better, actually. That's a summer bow now. Bigger loops. June reached up and touched the bow. Then, without a word, She took hold of Maren's apron, just a fistful of the fabric, the way a much smaller child holds on, and would not let go. Nobody moved. The fans turned. Somewhere in the back, Gloria set down a pan very, very softly. "Miss Cole." Julian's voice had gone rough at the edges, all the boardroom smoothed off it. "I'll throw out the contract. The number. The vehicle. All of it. Forget I said any of it. I'm not asking you to take a position." He came around the counter, slow, and crouched down too, the three of them low together near the chrome and the spilled sugar. His $1,000 trousers in the diner grit. "I'm asking you to help me. I don't know how to reach her. I have tried everything I know, and everything I know is wrong. And she walked across a parking lot for you." "Julian," his mother said, low and warning. He didn't look away from Maren. Please, and Maren Cole, who had a landlord and a double shift and 11 years of knowing better, looked down at the small hand gripping her apron like it was the only fixed thing in a spinning world, and felt the floor of her whole careful life tilt quietly out from under her. "I can't just up and leave Gloria," she heard herself say, which wasn't no. Which everybody in that diner, including Maren, understood was not no. "Don't you mind me?" Gloria called from the pass-through, not even pretending now, wiping her hands on her apron as she came around. "I've got 2 new girls and a nephew who needs the hours." She fixed Julian with a look that had assessed 22 years of difficult men. "But you listen here, funeral suit. That girl works for you, not on you. She gets her own day off, and her own door that locks, and nobody," a glance at Vivian, sharp as a tack, "nobody talks down to her under your roof. She comes home to me every Sunday, so I can see with my own eyes she's still herself. Those are my terms, and I'm the only one at this table whose terms are about a person and not a price." "Done," Julian said immediately. "I haven't said yes," Maren protested, but June's small fist tightened in her apron, and the child looked up at her, just once, just for a heartbeat, and in that grave little face was the first thing that wasn't grief that anyone had seen there in months. A question. "Are you going to leave like the others?" And Maren, God help her, found she couldn't be one more person who walked out that door. "1 week," she said. "A trial. For her, not for the money. And if it's not working, I walk, and nobody draws up a paper about it." Vivian Hale drew a long breath through her nose like a woman who could see exactly where this road went, and could not, for all her pearls, find the words to bar it. "You'll regret bringing her into that house," she said. But she was looking at June's hand on the apron when she said it, and her voice had gone strange and thin. "All of you, you have no idea what you're walking into." Outside, the summer heat shimmered off the parking lot, and a child who hadn't spoken in 2 months held on to a waitress with both hands now, and would not let go. The week began on a Sunday, which Gloria said was bad luck for anything but church and good luck for everything else, and Maren chose to believe the second half. She packed 2 duffel bags in the apartment she'd been 1 late check from losing, and when the black car came for her, it came too quietly, gliding to the curb without the cough and rattle of every car she'd ever owned. And a man in a grey cap took her bags as if they weren't full of the same socks she'd been darning for years. "You can sit up front if you like," the driver said. "Most don't. I'm Theo." Maren. She got in the back anyway, because June was in the back, buckled into a seat that probably cost what Maren made in a month, looking out the tinted window at a world gone cool and dim through the glass. "Hey, button." June didn't answer, but she shifted 6 inches closer along the leather, until her shoulder was almost against Maren's arm, and then she went back to watching the summer slide by, the cut hayfields gone gold, the heat standing in sheets above the road, the cicadas so loud Maren could hear them, even through the sealed quiet of the car. The Hale place was 40 minutes out, past a gate that opened on its own, and a drive that curved through trees old enough to have opinions. The house, when it came, did not so much sit on the land as occupy it. Pale stone, tall windows, a fountain out front that ran clear and steady in the heat as though water were nothing, were free, were the least of anyone's worries. "It's big," Maren said, because June was watching her face to see what she'd do with it. She made herself shrug. "Bet it echoes something awful. Bet you could yell in there and hear yourself 3 times. The smallest flicker at the corner of June's mouth. Not a smile. The rumor of one. Inside, the air was so cold it raised the hair on Maren's arms, and the front hall went up 2 stories to a ceiling painted with clouds, and somewhere a clock ticked with the deep patience of money. A woman in a pressed uniform met them, took the bags from Theo, and looked at Maren the way you'd look at weather coming in. "Mrs. Hale asked that you be shown to the staff residence," the woman said. "I'm Dana. Housekeeper. A-beat. Lower. Almost kind. She's the one fed you eggs this morning, Miss June. Pointed right at the carton, didn't you?" June pressed closer to Maren's leg. "Mr. Hale," Dana went on. "Careful," said the East Room. "Not the staff residence. There's a difference," Maren said. It wasn't a question. "There's a difference," Dana agreed, and the look that passed between the 2 women said the rest, that somewhere above them, in the cool, tall rooms, a quiet argument had already been had about exactly where the diner girl would sleep, and Julian had won it, and Vivian had not forgotten. The East Room had a window that looked over the back lawns, where sprinklers turned slow rainbows in the late light, and a swimming pool lay flat and turquoise and unused. The bed was bigger than Maren's old kitchen. There was a private bathroom with a door that locked, just as Gloria had demanded, and a small sitting area with a chair the color of cream, and on the desk, someone had left a folded card with her name on it, in Julian's slanted hand. The number on the contract still stands whenever you want it. J.H. She read it once, and put it face down in a drawer. June would not be left in her own room. Maren learned this at bedtime, when the house had gone dim, and the heat outside had finally cracked into the blue of a summer dusk, crickets starting up beyond the glass. June's room was down the hall, a child's room done by someone with a catalogue, all soft greys and a canopy bed, and a shelf of toys still in their boxes, and June stood in the doorway of it, and would not go in. "This your room?" Maren asked. Nothing. The child's hand found the hem of Maren's borrowed cardigan. "Okay," Maren crouched. "Okay, you don't have to. But somebody's got to sleep in here, or that bed's gonna think nobody loves it." She nodded at the canopy. "Beds have feelings. Everybody knows that. You leave one empty too long, it gets dramatic." June looked at the bed. Then at Maren. Then she walked in, climbed up, and sat in the very center of the enormous mattress, small as a coin in a collection plate, and patted the space beside her once. So Maren sat. She didn't talk much. She told one slow story about a cat that used to come to the diner's back door and refused, on principle, to come inside, and how Gloria had named it Customer because it only showed up at mealtimes and never tipped, and somewhere in the middle of it June's eyes went heavy and her breathing went long, and she tipped sideways until her head was on Maren's knee. That was when Maren saw it. On the nightstand, half tucked behind a lamp, was a framed photograph laid flat on its face. Maren reached over, slow, and set it upright. A woman laughed out of it, young, dark-haired, sun-browned, caught mid-turn on what looked like a beach, one hand up against the brightness, the other resting on the round swell of a pregnant belly. She was beautiful in the careless way of people who don't know yet how a picture will come to be all you have. And someone, recently, had laid her face down, so no one would have to meet her eyes. Maren looked from the photograph to the sleeping child on her knee, and the math of it settled in her chest, heavy and quiet. She did not know the whole of it, but she knew the shape, knew there had been a mother, knew she was not in this house, knew that the word for where she'd gone was not a word anyone here said out loud. because June had stopped talking, and the staff stepped soft, and a grandmother pressed her fingers to her pearls like a woman holding herself upright. She laid the photograph back up, facing the room, where a girl could see her mother's face if she wanted to. It seemed the smallest thing she could do, and possibly the wrongest, and she did it anyway. She did not hear the door. "Who told you to touch that?" Vivian Hale stood in the doorway in a dressing gown the color of old ivory, her white hair down now, which somehow made her more severe rather than less, like a blade out of its sheath. Her eyes had gone to the photograph and stuck there, and her voice, for all its frost, had a tremor underneath it that Maren felt before she understood. "It was face down," Maren said quietly, so as not to wake June. "Kids should be able to see their—" "You will not!" Vivian came 2 steps into the room, lowered her own voice to match, and it was worse, low. It shook. "You have been in this house 4 hours. You do not know what that child can and cannot bear to look at. You do not know what any of us can bear. Frankly, you know nothing at all. And you have decided, on the strength of some pancakes, that you understand my granddaughter better than the people who—" She stopped. Her jaw worked. She looked at the sleeping girl, and something passed over her face that was not contempt, but had never been contempt. That Maren finally understood was simply terror wearing its best clothes. "Put it down," she said. "I am asking you. Put it back the way it was." Maren stood, slow, easing June's head onto the pillow. The child stirred, sighed, did not wake. "No," Maren said, just as quiet. "Not because I'm trying to fight you. Because she fell asleep looking at it just now, and she slept. First time tonight she wasn't holding on to me with both hands. You want me to take away the one thing that let go of her shoulders?" Vivian Hale stared at her. The crickets sang. Down the long hall the patient clock counted. "You think this is kindness," Vivian said at last. "What you're doing. You think you've walked in here with your tricks and your sugar packets, and you're going to fix in a week what we couldn't." Her voice broke clean in half on the word, and she turned it into a cough, pressed the back of her hand to her mouth, recovered. "Get out of this room. The child sleeps. You've done your tricks. Go to bed." "I'll go," Maren said. "But I'm leaving her door open, and mine too, because she'll wake at some point, and she'll want to know somebody's there." She paused at the threshold, close enough to the older woman to smell the rose water and the gin-clear note of something stronger underneath it. A woman holding the night off with both hands. "Mrs. Hale, whatever happened in this house, I'm not here to step on it. I'm here for her, that's all." "That," said Vivian, "is what the last 6 said too." And she turned and went down the hall, ramrod straight, one hand trailing the wall, as though even she needed something to hold. In the morning, the heat came back hard, and so did the family office. Maren learned what that meant over breakfast, which she took with June in a sunroom full of green light, the 2 of them working through eggs and the small button pancakes that Maren had taught Dana to make the night before, when a woman she hadn't met walked in on heels that announced her 3 rooms early. She was younger than Vivian, older than Maren, in a sleeveless summer sheath the exact gray of expensive concrete, a tablet under one arm and sunglasses pushed up into hair that had been cut by someone with a waiting list. "You must be the diner," the woman said, pleasant as glass. "Sloan Whitfield. I run Mr. Hale's office. Which means, among 1,000 other things, I run his household contracts." She set the tablet down, slid into a chair across from Maren, and gave June a smile that the child correctly identified as not for her, returning at once to her pancakes. "I'll need your social, your bank details, 2 references, and a signature on the standard staff agreement. The one Mr. Hale offered you yesterday was improvised. This is the real one." "I told him a week," Marin said. "A trial, no paper." "Yes, I heard about the handshake at the roadhouse." Sloane's smile didn't move. "It's charming. It's also not how a family with this kind of exposure brings a stranger inside its walls. There's a confidentiality clause. There's a clause about speaking to press. There's a clause about photographs." Her eyes flicked, just once, to June. "We've had incidents. People who got close and then got paid by other people to talk. You understand. It's nothing personal." "It's all personal," Marin said. "That's the part you keep getting wrong." Something cooled behind Sloane's eyes, the pleasantness going thin over the steel. "Let me be direct, since plainness seems to be your brand. Mrs. Hale does not want you here. Mr. Hale, at the moment, does. My job is to make Mr. Hale's life run smoothly, and a war between him and his mother over the household help does not run smoothly. So," she slid the tablet across the table, "you sign the real contract, you take the real salary, and you become a problem I can manage. Or you stay on your handshake and you're weak, and you become a problem I solve a different way. I'd genuinely rather the first one. You seem to be good with the kid." Marin looked at the tablet. She looked at the number, which was the same insulting fortune as before. She looked at June, who had stopped eating and gone very still, the way she went still when grown-up weather gathered, her small hand creeping across the table toward Marin's sleeve. "You see that?" Marin said softly, not to Sloane, almost to herself. "She can hear it. The tone. She can't follow the words, but she's got the tone down cold. She knows what it sounds like when adults are deciding things about her over her head." She put her hand over June's. "That's what she's been drowning in. Everybody managing her. Everybody solving her." "That's very moving," Sloane said. "Sign the contract." "No paper." Marin stood, gathering both plates. He shook my hand. "That holds till Sunday, same as I said. You want to solve me before then? You take it up with him." Sloane Whitfield watched her carry the dishes to the sideboard, and when she spoke again, the glaze was gone entirely, and what was underneath was almost respect and entirely warning. "You think he's the soft one and she's the hard one," she said. "Julian and his mother. That's the read everyone gets in the first day." She stood, collected her tablet, slid the sunglasses back down. "Stay long enough, and you'll find out it's the other way around. He's the one with something to lose." She paused at the door. "Ask him where he goes Thursday nights. Ask him why no nannies ever lasted past a Thursday. Then come find me about that contract." And she was gone, heels ticking away across the marble, leaving the question hanging in the green sunroom light like a held breath. It worked on Marin all day, the way a splinter works, present in everything she did and impossible to look at straight. She didn't want it to. She told herself a woman like Sloane traded in exactly that, a poisoned little seed dropped in passing, designed to grow. Ask him where he goes Thursday nights. It was Monday. She had 2 days to not think about it, and she thought about it through all of them. She thought about it while she and June built a city out of the toys still in their boxes, finally freed. June arranging the little wooden cars in a line by color the way she'd arranged the sugar packets, pink first. She thought about it while she found, in the back of a closet, a child-sized rain slicker and rubber boots with frogs on them, and June touched the frogs for a long time without taking them out. She thought about it during the long gold afternoon when she walked June down to the unused pool, and they sat on the warm tile with their feet in the water, and the sprinklers hissed across the lawn, and a heron came down at the far end and stood on one leg like it owned the place. And June laughed. Actually laughed. One short, astonished sound, hand flying to her own mouth as if to catch it. Marin did not make a thing of it. She just stored it where she kept the good ones. Julian came home late, as he had the night before, the black car ghosting up the drive after June was already down. Marin found him in the kitchen at the far end, jacket off, tie loose, eating something cold straight from the container at the counter, like a man who'd forgotten food was a thing you sat down for. The big house ticked around them. Outside the window, the pool light glowed blue, and the cicadas had given way to the deeper saw of crickets. "She laughed today," Marin said. He went still with the fork halfway up. "What?" "At the pool. A heron landed and stood there looking offended, and she laughed." Marin leaned in the doorway. "I figured you'd want to know that more than you'd want to eat whatever that is at midnight." For a moment, Julian Hale didn't say anything at all. He set the fork down. He put both hands flat on the cold counter and bowed his head over them, and his shoulders moved once, hard. And when he lifted his face, it was wet, and he didn't bother to hide it, which surprised her more than anything yet. 11 months, he said. It's been 11 months since I heard that sound. He scrubbed a hand down his face. Thank you. There isn't a thank you. Don't thank me. Thank the heron. She crossed to the cupboard, found 2 glasses, filled them with water from the tap because it gave her hands something to do. Julian, can I ask you something and you not get cold about it? That depends entirely on the question. But he took the glass. Your office runner, Sloane. She watched his face. She told me to ask you where you go on Thursday nights. The change in him was immediate and total. The warmth shuddered. The boardroom came down over his features like a security gate, and he set the glass down with a click on the stone, and the man who had wept over a heron 30 seconds ago looked at her with a stranger's eyes. Sloane should mind her contracts, he said, and you should mind my daughter. Thursday is none of your concern. I didn't say it was. I'm telling you what your own people are saying about you, in your own house, to the woman you handed your kid to. That seems like the kind of thing you'd want to. Good night, Miss Cole. He picked up his jacket. At the door he stopped, his back to her, and for a second she thought he might explain, might crack, might be the man from the diner floor who'd said, please, in the grit. Whatever she implied, he said, low, it isn't what you think. But I'm not going to defend myself in my own kitchen to a woman who's been here 2 days. And he was gone, his steps going up the great staircase, leaving Marin alone with 2 glasses of water and a question that had just grown a great deal larger. By Thursday, she'd half-talked herself out of it. Then Thursday came, and at 7 the black car came around, and Marin watched from the east window as Julian Hale, in a dark suit that was not a work suit, got in alone and was driven off down the curving drive into the blue summer dusk. And 20 minutes later, when she went to check on June, she found the child's bed empty. Her heart went sideways. June? She kept her voice level, the way you do so a kid won't catch the fear. Button? The room was dim, the canopy a pale ghost, the toy city undisturbed on the floor, the bathroom dark, the closet empty. June. Down the hall now, faster, the cold marble under her bare feet, past the clouds painted on the ceiling, past closed doors that all looked the same. "June, honey, where'd you go?" She found her at the end of the west wing, in a room Maren hadn't been shown, the one door in the house that had been closed every time she'd passed it. It stood open now a hand's width, the child having worked the heavy latch somehow. And inside, June sat on the floor in a slick of moonlight in front of an open lower drawer. And around her, spread on the rug like something washed up by a tide, were a woman's things. A silk scarf, a pair of reading glasses, a paperback gone soft at the spine, and a phone, an old one, screen cracked across one corner, that June had somehow brought to life, that was playing, soft, tinny, on the loop the child had clearly found and could not stop. A voice. A woman's voice, warm and laughing, saying, "Say it for the camera, baby. Say hi. Say hi to future June." And then a baby's gurgle, and then the laugh again, and then it looped. "Say it for the camera, baby." June was not crying. June was sitting in the wreck of her mother's left-behind things, with her face turned up to the cracked screen, and her lips were moving, soundless, shaping along with the voice. "Say hi. Say hi." And the first word Maren ever heard June Hale speak came out of her then, cracked and small and aimed at a phone, not at any living person in the room. "Mama," June said. And from the doorway behind Maren, where Vivian Hale stood frozen with one hand at her throat and all the color gone out of her, came a sound like something breaking that had been holding for 11 months. And at the same moment, headlights swept the west wall, too early, hours too early, the black car coming back up the drive when it should have been gone till dawn. And Maren understood with a cold drop of certainty that whatever Thursday was, tonight it had ended before it began, and Julian Hale was about to walk into this house and find his mother weeping and his silent daughter speaking, and the one closed door in the whole estate standing open. "Get her out of there," Vivian whispered. "Get her out. Get her out before he—" But her voice wouldn't carry the rest. And downstairs the front door opened, and a man's footsteps started up the stairs. The footsteps came up slow. That was the thing Maren would remember after. Not that they were fast, not that they pounded, but that they were slow. Each one set down with the care of a man who already knew, somewhere below thought, that the house had gone wrong while he was out of it. She heard them reach the landing. She heard them pause where the hall split, where the painted clouds gave way to the dim west wing nobody used. And she had time, in that pause, to do exactly one thing, and she did it. She crossed the moonlit rug and crouched down and gathered June up off the floor, the cracked phone still going in the child's two hands. "Say hi. Say hi to future June." Tinny and warm and unbearable. And she turned the small body so its face was against her collarbone instead of toward the door. "I've got you," she said, very low, into the loose hair. "I've got you, Button. I'm not going anywhere." "Mama?" June said again, into Maren's neck. Not a cry, a report, a fact she had just discovered and could not put down. "Mama. Mama." "I know. I hear her too. She's got a nice laugh." Vivian Hale had not moved from the doorway. She stood with one hand still at her throat and the other braced flat against the frame, and the strength had gone out of her the way water goes out of a cracked glass, all at once and from the bottom. When the footsteps reached the door, she did not step aside. She put herself, old and silk-thin and shaking, into the gap, as though 70 years and a dressing gown could bar a grown man from a room. "Don't," she said. "Julian. Go back downstairs." "Mother?" His voice came from just behind her, and it was wrong, scraped down to something Maren hadn't heard from him yet. Not in the diner, not over the heron, not in the cold kitchen.
"Why is that door open?" "Go back downstairs, and I will explain it in the morning."
"Why is the door open, Mother? Move!" She moved. She did it the way a wall moves, which is to say she came apart against him, one trembling hand going to his sleeve and sliding off. And then Julian Hale was in the doorway of the one closed room in his house, and the moonlight found him there, and Marin watched the whole architecture of the man come down. He saw the open drawer. He saw the scarf and the soft-spined paperback and the reading glasses laid out on the rug like things the tide leaves. He saw his daughter in a waitress's arms with a cracked phone glowing in her fists. And he heard the voice, because it was still going. It had been going this whole time. It would not stop. "Say it for the camera, baby. Say hi." And Julian made a sound that wasn't a word, a short, hard intake, like a man stepping into water far colder than he'd braced for. And he crossed the room in 3 steps and took the phone out of his daughter's hands. It was not gentle. It was not rough. It was the fast, helpless grab of a person pulling a hot thing off a child, and the screen went dark under his thumb, and the voice cut off mid-syllable. "Say hi to Foot." And the silence that dropped into the room afterward was so total that Marin could hear the crickets through the glass, and the great clock down the hall, and the small, wet sound of June's breath against her neck. "No," June said. The whole room turned to her. It was the 3rd word any of them had heard her speak in 2 months, and she had spent it on a refusal, her face coming up off Marin's collarbone, her hand reaching after the dark phone in her father's fist. "No. No. Mama. Want Mama. Give it." "June." Julian's voice broke clean across the middle of her name. He went down on his knees in front of them both, the dark phone clutched against his chest like she might wrest it back, and his face was a thing Marin wanted to look away from and made herself watch, because somebody in this room had to keep their eyes open. "June, sweetheart, you can't. That's not—" "Mama!" And now the tears came, all of them, 11 months of them, the child twisting in Marin's arms and reaching past her own father for a cracked screen gone dark. And the sound she made was not a 6-year-old's sound. It was older and worse. It was the sound of something that had been held under and was only now allowed to surface. "Give it back! Give it back! I want her! I want my mama! I want—" "Give it to her," Marin said. Julian's head came up. "What?" "Give her the phone, Julian." "It's not." His jaw worked. "You don't know what that—" "I know exactly what it is." Marin had June clamped against her, the small body bucking and sobbing, and she kept her own voice down at the bottom of the register, flat and warm and absolutely level, the voice she'd used to talk a scalded line cook through a burn. "It's her mother's voice, and she found it. And now you're taking it away 2 seconds after she found it. And every second you hold it, she's learning that the one good thing gets grabbed back. Give it to her. You can talk about the rest in the morning. Right now, you give the baby her mama." "Julian, do not," said Vivian from the doorway, and her voice had gone to a thread. "If she has it, she'll play it, and play it. She'll wear a groove in herself. She'll never. That is exactly how we lost her the first time." "Lost her," Marin repeated, and something cold walked up the back of her neck, because there it was again, the word that wasn't a word, the shape everyone in this house stepped around. She looked from the grandmother in the door to the father on his knees, and the splinter Sloane had pushed under her skin on Monday gave one slow turn. "Lost her? How?" Nobody answered. June sobbed. The clock counted, and Julian Hale, kneeling on his late, kneeling on the rug among the scattered things, looked at the dark phone in his hand, and at his daughter's reaching fingers, and at the waitress who had told him to give the baby her mama, and something in him chose. He turned the phone over. He pressed the cracked screen until it woke. He found, with a thumb that shook, the loop the child had found, and he set it going again, soft. "Say it for the camera, baby." And he put the phone into June's open hands. The child folded over it. The sobbing dropped to a hiccup, then to nothing. Just the wet, ragged breathing of a kid spent past the end of herself. And she pressed the warm glass to her ear and listened to her mother say hi to a future that was now. But was this room? But was her? Julian stayed on his knees a moment longer. Then he stood and walked past his mother without a word, and went down the great stairs. And somewhere below, a door closed. Not slammed, closed, with the awful control of a man who slammed nothing, because if he started, he would not be able to stop. Maren got June down near 1 in the morning. It took that long. She carried the child back to the catalogue grey room with its untouched canopy, and June would not be put in the bed, so Maren sat on the floor with her back against it, and June in her lap, and the phone going soft and endless between them. And one loop at a time, the storm wore itself out. The voice was the mother's whole gift in the end. That careless laughing. "Say hi, say hi." And Maren listened to it 40 times, 50, until she had it by heart, until she could have said it along, and she understood why a grandmother feared it, and she understood why a child could not let it go. And she thought there was probably no one in this whole, cold, beautiful house who'd been allowed to feel both of those true things at the same time. When June finally went under, really under, slack and heavy, the phone gone dark on its own in her loosened hand, Maren eased it free and set it on the nightstand, face up, screen up, where the child would find it first thing. She did not turn it off. She'd seen what turning it off did. She carried June to the bed and laid her in the center of it and pulled the cool sheet up, and the girl's hand found the hem of Maren's cardigan, even in sleep, and held it. So Maren unbuttoned the cardigan and left it, sleeve and all, in the small fist, and went out into the hall in her undershirt, with her arms bare to the over-cold air. She found Vivian where she had not expected to find her, not gone to bed, not retreated behind her own closed door, but sitting on a hard bench in the dim hall outside June's room, ramrod straight, hands folded in her lap, her undone white hair making her look like a much younger woman who had aged terribly overnight. There was a glass beside her on the bench, untouched now, the ice gone to water. "She's asleep," Maren said. "I heard." Vivian did not look at her. "You let her keep it." "I did." "You have no idea what you've started." But there was no frost left in it. The voice that had priced Maren's sneakers in the diner doorway had nothing in it now but exhaustion. "She found that telephone in May. We did not know it still worked. It had been in a drawer for a long while. She found it, and she would not eat. She would not sleep. She carried it everywhere and played that fragment over and over, until the screen cracked from her dropping it, and she stopped speaking altogether. The therapist said the loop was, she used a word, arresting, that the child was arresting herself inside that 1 second of her mother, to keep from going forward into a world that did not have her in it. Her hands tightened on each other. So we took it. The doctor advised it. I advised it. Julian could not bear to, so I did it myself. I took it out of her hands while she slept, and I locked it in that room with everything else. And the next morning, she did not ask for it. She did not ask for anything. She simply went quiet. And she has been quiet since. Now she looked up, and her eyes were terrible. And you have just handed it back to her in one night. So, tell me, Miss Cole, with your pancakes, was that kindness? Maren lowered herself onto the other end of the bench. The wood was cold through her thin undershirt. Down the hall, the painted clouds floated in the dark, and the clock ticked. And somewhere outside, a sprinkler came on with a hiss and ran its slow circle over the black lawn. I think, Maren said slowly, you took the phone to stop her hurting. And it didn't stop. It just went where you couldn't see it. She turned the worn band of an old watch on her wrist around and around. She didn't go quiet because she healed up, ma'am. She went quiet because she figured out the one thing she loved gets taken if anybody catches her loving it. That's not better. That's just quieter. There's a difference. Same as there's a difference between the staff residence and the East Room. And you know all about that difference, because you're the one who picks which one people get. Vivian's mouth pressed white. I'm not saying you were wrong to be scared, Maren went on. Grooves are real. A kid can wear herself out on a loop. I've seen it. Not like this, but I've seen it. But you don't fix it by making the mother disappear twice. First she's gone, and then her voice is gone. And the kid's left holding nothing and learning to want nothing. She let out a long breath. Tonight she said 3 words. Mama, no, want. That's 3 more than 6 trained professionals got. I'd rather have a kid who's loud and hurting than one who's quiet and gone. You can work with loud. For a long moment, Vivian Hale said nothing. The water glass sweated a small ring onto the dark wood. Then, in a voice Maren had to lean to catch, her name was Kara. A breath. My son's wife. She did not come from anything, you understand. Rather like you. He found her teaching swimming lessons at a public pool the summer he was meant to be in Geneva, and he came home with sunburn and a girl who called me Viv inside an hour, and I... The old hands turned over in her lap, palms up, empty. I was not kind to her. I want that said plainly, because I'll not have you finding it out from Dina and thinking worse of me than the truth, which is bad enough. I told her she was a season. I told her he'd tire of the novelty. I told her, the week before the wedding, that there was a number she could have to make it all go away quietly. And she laughed at me. Laughed. The way the child laughed at your heron. One short, astonished sound. And she said, Viv, you cannot buy back something that was never for sale. And she married him in a garden, in a dress I did not pay for and would not have been seen choosing. Vivian's chin lifted and trembled and held. She was the best of us. And I spent the years I had with her being the worst of myself. And now there is a cracked telephone in my granddaughter's hands playing her voice on a loop. And every time it says, "Say hi," I hear her telling me I cannot buy back what was never for sale. And she is right. She is still right. She will always be right. And I cannot. The sentence did not finish. Vivian Hale put 2 fingers to her pearls, which she was not wearing, which were upstairs in a box, and finding her throat bare seemed to undo her more than anything else that night. She pressed the back of her hand to her mouth instead. She did not weep where Maren could see it, but the breath she took shuddered all the way down, and her shoulders, when they came down the way June's had come down over a plate of button pancakes, the way a tight thing comes loose when somebody finally feeds it the truth. I'm sorry, Marin said, and meant it. Don't be. I was a fool. And I have a great deal of money, and the two of those together have cost this family more than you can imagine. Vivian gathered herself, spine by spine. Now, you want to know about Thursday. I can see it sitting on you. That woman from the office said it there, and she would. Because Sloane Whitfield has wanted you gone since before you arrived, for reasons that are her own. She rose, slow, one hand to the wall as she had the night before. I will not tell you what Thursday is. It is my son's to tell, or not. But I will tell you this much, because you let the child keep her mother's voice, and that has bought you one true thing from me. She looked down at Marin on the bench. Whatever the office woman has hinted, you have it backwards. Thursday is not where he goes to be bad. It is where he goes to be ashamed. There is a difference, as you said. And if you go looking for it the way she wants you to, you will break the one thing in this house that has not broken yet. She turned to go. Go to bed, Miss Cole. You smell of my granddaughter's tears, and that is the first time anyone has. And I find I cannot quite. Good night. And she went, ivory and upright, and trailing one hand along the wall, leaving Marin alone in the cold hall with a name she hadn't had an hour ago. Kara. The woman in the photograph had a name now, and a laugh she'd left behind on a cracked screen, and a husband who went somewhere on Thursdays to be ashamed. She did not sleep much. The house was too cold and too quiet, and the name kept turning over in her. And at some grey hour she gave up and went down the back stairs to find coffee, following the smell of it, because someone was up before her. Julian was in the kitchen. He had not gone to bed at all. He was in the same dark, not-work suit. The jacket gone now, the shirt open at the collar, and he stood at the window with a mug going cold in his hand, watching the lawn come up out of the dark, the sprinklers wheeling their slow rainbows as the first light caught them. He did not turn when she came in, but he knew her step. She kept it on all night, he asked. It went dark on its own. I left it where she'll find it. Marin found the pot, found a mug, poured. The coffee here was good, better than Gloria's, and she resented that on Gloria's behalf. She slept, real sleep, not the holding on kind. 3 words. He said it to the glass. She said 3 words last night, and I had to take her mother's voice out of her hands to hear them. Do you understand what that? He stopped, drank the cold coffee like punishment. My mother told you about Kara. She told me a little, that she's the one, your wife. Marin picked her way over the ground, careful of every stone. That she wasn't kind, back at the start, and that your wife was the best of you all, and called her Viv inside an hour. Something moved in Julian's profile, almost the ghost of the heron smile from the kitchen. She did. Kara collected difficult people. My mother was a project to her. She used to say. He shook his head. It doesn't matter what she used to say. It might. It doesn't, because she's not here to say it. And I've spent 11 months learning exactly how much of a person is the things they say out loud, and how fast you forget the sound of it once it stops. He set the mug down. Which is why I could not let June wear that loop to nothing. Do you see? It's not in the drawer to be cruel. It's in the drawer because it is the only recording of her voice that exists. That one fragment, 40 seconds. And every time the child plays it, the file degrades, the speaker strains, the screen cracks a little wider. And one day, it will simply stop working. The last 40 seconds of her, worn out by the one person who needs it most. So tell me, Miss Cole, you who are so very sure. He turned from the window at last, and his eyes were red-rimmed and ferociously awake. Do I let my daughter play her mother's voice until it's gone forever, and she's left with the same silence, only now it's her fault? Or do I lock it away and let her hate me and keep the 40 seconds safe for a day she's old enough to bear them? Because those are the choices. Those have always been the choices. And there is no pancake for it. The kitchen rang with it. Outside, a mourning dove started its low 5 notes over and over, and the smell of the coffee sat between them. And Maren understood, all at once, and with a drop in her stomach, that she had walked into the middle of something that did not have a kind answer, that the grandmother and the father and the office woman were not the obstacle to the right thing, that there might not be a right thing, only a row of wrong ones, and somebody had to keep choosing among them every single day. You back it up, she said. Julian blinked. What? The file, the 40 seconds. She set her own mug down. You're a man with a whole office. You're telling me nobody's copied it. You play it once more, very careful, into something that records it clean, and then you've got it forever, 1,000 times over. And June can wear out the cracked phone, and it doesn't matter, because the real one's safe in a cloud, in a vault, in whatever you people keep things in. You're not choosing between her hearing it and keeping it safe. You set it up so it's both. That's not a pancake. That's just somebody outside the grief thinking for 1 minute, instead of being inside it. Julian Hale stared at her. He stared at her so long the dove got through its whole 5 notes twice, and the light came up another shade, and the rainbows on the lawn went from rose to gold. And something happened in his face that she could not at first read because she had not yet seen it on him. It was the look of a man who has been carrying a stone up a hill for 11 months and has just been shown by a stranger that there is a road around. No one, he said very quietly, in 11 months. Not the therapist, not my mother, not the $400 an hour grief specialist with the office on Park, not me. No one has said that to me. No one thought of it. We were all so busy choosing which way to lose it that he pressed the heel of his hand hard against one eye. When he took it away, he laughed. The broken open version. The one with everything inside it instead of nothing. You've been here 3 days. It's not because I'm smart, Maren said. It's because I'm not bleeding. You can't read a label off the inside of the bottle, that's all. Gloria says that. About men who can't see what's killing their own restaurants. She heard the word and let it stand. It was just Gloria's saying. Get Sloane to set up the whatever, today, before anybody talks you out of it. Sloane. His face shifted, and the warmth pulled back half a step. Not all the way, but enough that Maren noticed. Be careful with Sloane. She said the same about you. Said to ask about Thursdays. I know what she said. She tells me what she tells everyone, eventually, in the order that suits her. He picked his jacket up off the chair. Sloane Whitfield has run this family's office for 9 years. She knew Kara. There are things there you don't have the shape of yet, and I'm not going to hand them to you across a kitchen at 6 in the morning, any more than I was going to hand you Thursday. He stopped at the door, the way he always seemed to, a man who did his hardest speaking with his back half turned. But you've done something this morning, with your cloud and your vault, that I won't forget. So I'll trade you. Don't go to Sloane about Thursday. Come to me. Sunday, when you go back to your Glorias. I'll drive you myself, and I'll tell you the whole of it in the car where June can't hear. And you can decide then whether you stay past your week. All of it. Thursday, Kara, the nannies, why my mother said you'd regret walking in. Everything. Will you wait until Sunday? It was Friday's eve of a thing, a real offer, the most open he'd been. And Maren, who had every reason to take it, opened her mouth to say she would, and the kitchen door swung wide, and Sloane Whitfield came in on her 3 rooms early heels, dressed already at 6 in the morning, in another concrete grey sheath, tablet under her arm, and behind the pleasant glass of her face was something lit and certain, and almost sorry. "Oh good, you're both up," she said. "That saves a conversation. Julian, the board call moved to 8. I need you on the road by 7. Her eyes went to Maren and held, and the sorry in them sharpened into something that was almost a warning, and almost a kindness, and entirely a blade. "And Miss Cole, before you make any promises about Sundays." She set the tablet on the counter, screen up, and turned it so Maren could see, and her voice when it came was very gentle, which was the worst part. "I ran your references. The 2 you didn't give me because you didn't sign, so I found my own. You should know what's in your own file before you decide to stay anywhere this exposed, because somebody else already has it. And they've been waiting for a Hale nanny to last longer than a Thursday, so they'd have someone worth paying." On the screen was a photograph. It was Maren, younger, hair longer, in a courthouse hallway she had spent 11 years not thinking about, a manila folder against her chest, and a face on her she'd hoped no camera had kept. Below it was a name that was not quite hers, and a date, and a single line of newsprint she could read upside down from across the counter, and her whole careful body went cold from the scalp down. "Where did you get that?" Maren said. "That's the wrong question." Sloane's voice didn't lift at all. "The right question is who else has it, and what they offered me for your address, and why I haven't said yes yet." She slid the tablet 1 inch closer. "Julian doesn't know. He's about to be on a board call. You have until he's out that door to decide whether I'm your problem or your only friend in this house." The mourning dove called its 5 low notes through the window. "So, diner, talk fast." And Julian, jacket half on, looked between the 2 women and the photograph he hadn't seen yet, and said, "What is that? Sloane, what is that on your screen?" and started across the kitchen to look. Julian crossed the kitchen, and Maren did the only thing 11 years of waiting tables had taught her to do when a plate was about to fall. She got her hand under it first. She reached out and turned the tablet flat against the stone, screen down, before he reached it. "Don't," she said. "Not like this. Not off her screen, with her voice doing it." She kept her palm on the dark glass. The marble was cold under her wrist, and the coffee was going bitter in the pot behind her, and outside, the mourning dove kept laying down its 5 low notes over and over, like it had all the time in the world. "If you're going to know it, you'll know it from me." Sloane's mouth opened. Maren looked at her, and something in the look made the office woman sit back 1/2 inch on her heels. "You went and found my file," Maren said. "Fine. You're good at your job. But I'm not going to stand in this kitchen and let you hand me to him like a thing you caught. I'll hand myself over. That's the only version I'll allow." She turned to Julian, who had stopped to step away, jacket half on one arm, his face caught between the board call and the dread. "You want to sit down? This isn't a standing up story." He did not sit. "Maren." "His name was Eli." She said it plain, the way Gloria cracked an egg. One motion, no flinch. "My sister's boy. I raised him from the time he could walk, because she couldn't. She had her own storms, and they took her under more years than they let her up. And for a while it was me and Eli in a 2-room over a laundromat, and he was the best thing I ever had a hand in." The warm iron smell of that laundromat came back to her so hard She almost swayed with it. Then she came up for air, and she came up with a man, and the man was the kind you smell wrong on before he's all the way through the door. I told the people you're supposed to tell. I filled out the papers you're supposed to fill out. And the papers said he was the family, and I was the aunt, and the family gets the child. Maren, Julian said again, lower. I took him. Her voice didn't shake, and that was the worst of it, how level it stayed. One night I put him in my car and I drove, and I didn't tell anybody, because I'd run out of papers, and I had a kid who flinched at a raised hand, and I figured a county lockup was a fair trade for that. They found us in 2 days. That's the photo. She nodded at the dark tablet under her hand. Courthouse. They gave him back to his mother, and her storms took her down again inside a year. And by then, I was the woman who'd snatched a child. So when it counted, I had no standing at all. He went into the system. I send a card every birthday to an address that forwards. He's 19 now. He's never written back. She finally took her hand off the glass. So that's your secret, Mr. Hale. The diner girl's got a record for stealing a child she loved off a man who hurt him. Now you know exactly what you let near your daughter. The kitchen rang with cicadas through the screen, and nothing else. Julian Hale set his jacket down on the back of the chair, very slowly, the way you set down something so it won't make a sound. He looked at the tablet. He looked at Maren. And then he did the thing she had not braced for, because she had braced for the boardroom gate to come down, for the lawyer-careful retreat, for, we'll need to discuss this. He laughed. Not the empty shape of one, the broken open kind with everything in it. You're telling me, he said, and his voice cracked clean across the middle, that the worst thing in your file is that you loved a frightened child so much you broke the law to get him somewhere safe. He pressed the heel of his hand against his eye. Sloane, look at me. That's the leverage. That's what's worth paying for. It's worth paying for because it ends you in a headline, Sloane said, and for the first time the glass was gone from her voice entirely. Billionaire hands grieving daughter to convicted child snatcher. That's the headline. They don't print the laundromat. They don't print the man who smelled wrong. They print the mugshot and the word convicted, and your name beside it. And then they go digging into why a Hale needed 6 nannies in 4 months, and they find Thursday. And then it isn't a story about a nanny anymore. She stood, and the heels that announced her 3 rooms early were silent now. I didn't go looking to hurt her, Julian. I went looking because somebody else was already looking, and I wanted to be holding it before they were. Who? Julian said. Sloane was quiet a moment. Out on the lawn, the sprinklers shut off all at once, and the sudden hush made the dove sound very loud. The same outfit that's been parked outside the gate every anniversary for a year, she said. The ones who ran the first piece about Kara. They've been waiting for one of these girls to last, because a girl who lasts is a girl who's seen things, and a girl who's seen things has a price. They reached me Tuesday. They offered enough that you'd be insulted on my behalf. I told them I'd think about it. She looked at Maren. I told them I'd think about it so they'd stop looking on their own for a week. That's the truth. And I'm aware it's an ugly shape of help. Maren found she believed her, which she resented almost as much as the good coffee. Tell me about Thursday, Maren said into the quiet, before somebody prints it at me. Julian went to the window. The light had come all the way up now, gold and flat across the back lawn, the heat already standing in sheets above the pool, and he watched it instead of her, the way he did his hardest talking. "There's a public pool across town," he said. "Concrete, a chain-link fence, a snack bar that sells the kind of ice cream that's mostly air. Kara taught swimming lessons there every summer of her life, including the summers after she married me, when my mother could not understand why a hale wife was standing waist-deep in municipal water teaching other people's children to float." He breathed. "I didn't understand it either. I told her so. The last real argument we ever had, not a spat, a real one, was about that pool. I asked her to give it up. I used my mother's words without meaning to. I said it wasn't necessary, as though the only reason a person does a thing is need." "What'd she say?" Marin asked, though she could half hear it already, the laughing voice off the cracked screen. "She said, 'Julian, you keep trying to make me smaller so I'll fit your family. I'm not going to fit. I'm going to teach a 6-year-old to put her face in the water on Thursday, and you're going to be there to clap. Or you're going to be in a meeting, but you are not going to be the man who asked me to stop.'" He swallowed. I was in the meeting. It was a Thursday. The road home from that pool runs along the reservoir, and it had come on to rain. Summer rain, the kind that's gone in 20 minutes. And she didn't. His hand flattened on the glass. She didn't come home. There was a bend and the water on the road, and she didn't come home. June was at my mother's. Kara had dropped her there so she could teach the lesson. So the last thing she did was the thing I'd asked her to stop doing. The dove had quit. The kitchen was so still Marin could hear the refrigerator's low animal hum. "So on Thursdays I drive there," Julian said. "I keep the pool open. It would have closed 3 years ago. It doesn't make money, no pool like that does. And I sit in the lot, and I watch the lights on the water through a chain-link fence, and I do not go in. Because if I go in, I'll have to clap. And there's no one to clap for. That's where I go to be ashamed. My mother used the word, and she was right. It isn't grief I'm hiding from you. It's that I'm the man who asked her to be smaller, and she got smaller in the only way I'd left her. She got gone." He turned from the window at last. "The nannies see me leave in a dark suit and come back unable to speak, every week, like clockwork. And they decide I'm unstable, or worse, and they go. You'd have gone too, by next Thursday. They always go by a Thursday." "I don't go by Thursdays," Marin said. "I go by Sundays, and only to see Gloria, and only so she'll quit texting me." It landed soft, the smallest joke, and she watched it reach him, watched the corner of his mouth do the thing she was coming to think of as the heron, the rumor of a smile. "You came back early last night. Hours early. Why?" He looked at her for a long beat. "Because I sat in that lot," he said, "and for the first time in 11 months, I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be in a kitchen at midnight, hearing that a heron had made my daughter laugh." He said it plainly, and then seemed to hear himself and looked away. So I turned the car around, and I walked into the worst night of the last year, and I took her mother's voice out of her hands, and you told me to give it back. And I did. He picked the tablet up off the stone, turned it over, looked at Marin's younger face in the courthouse hall for one steady second, and then he held it out to Sloane without breaking the look. "End it," he said. "Whatever the deal was, whatever they offered, we're not paying it and we're not feeding it. There's nothing here to keep quiet. The girl loved a child, and so did my wife, and I'll print that myself before I let them print the other." Sloane took the tablet. She did not move to leave. "You should know," she said. before you decide I'm forgiven. I wanted you gone, Marin, from the morning of the contract, and not for the family's sake, for mine." She set the tablet against her hip. "I've run this office 9 years. I knew Kara before Julian did, if you want the truth of it. I'm the one who hired the swim instructor for a corporate water safety event, and I'm the one who introduced them. And I have spent 11 months being the only person in this house who got to keep her by keeping her secrets. The press, the schedule, the careful story. As long as I held all of it, I still had her." Her chin came up. "And then a waitress walks in and gets the child to say, 'Mama,' in one night. And I understood I was about to lose the last of my job, which was the last of my friend. So I went looking for a reason you couldn't stay. I'm not proud of it. I'm telling you because you handed yourself over a minute ago instead of letting me do it for you, and I find that buys you the truth back." It was, Marin thought, the second person in this house to use that exact arithmetic on her. That buys you one true thing. She wondered what it said about the Hales that even their honesty came priced. "You loved her too," Marin said. "That's not a thing to be ashamed of in front of me. I've got a kid I send cards to that don't get answered. I know about loving where you can't keep it." Sloane's eyes shone, hard and bright, and she blinked it down the way a professional blinks down anything. "I'll end the deal this morning," she said. "There's a way to do it that costs them more than it costs us. I'm good at my job." She crossed to the door, paused with her hand on the frame, and for once her heels said nothing at all. "For what it's worth, Miss Cole, sign the real contract, not for the money, so that when those people come for you, and they will, you've got an office full of lawyers between you and the gate instead of a handshake. Let me protect you. It's the only apology I've got that's worth anything." And she went, and a moment later, faint through the house, the front door opened on the morning, and the cicadas roared in and were shut out again. Julian let out a breath. "She just apologized," he said, sounding stunned. "Sloane doesn't apologize. Sloane manages." "People do all kinds of things they don't do when somebody finally tells the truth in the room," Marin said. "It's catching, like a yawn." She reached for the coffee pot, then didn't, because her hands had started to shake now that the worst of it was out, the courthouse photo loose in the air of a billionaire's kitchen, and the sky not fallen. "Julian, I have to tell you the part Sloane didn't get to, because she'd have led with it if she had it." She made herself meet his eyes. "I can't keep doing this if it puts June in a headline. I've already been the reason one child got photographed in a courthouse hall. I won't be the reason a second one gets photographed through a fence." The lie rose up in her, old and certain, in her own sister's voice and her own. "You love them, and then you lose them. Every time. It is the one thing you do." "Maybe I should go, while it's just a week, while nobody's printed anything yet." She packed in the cold of the east room, with the sprinklers coming back on outside, slow rainbows wheeling over the lawn she'd sat beside with her feet in the warm pool water 2 days and a lifetime ago. 2 duffel bags, the same socks. She found the folded card in the drawer. The number on the contract still stands, and left it face down where it was, because it had never been the number. June was in the doorway when she turned around. The child had her mother's cracked phone in one hand, dark now, and Marin's unbuttoned cardigan still bunched in the other from the night before. And she stood very still and watched the duffel bags, the way she'd watched the woman in the linen blazer back out of Gloria's. the way she watched all the leaving in her short, loud life. "Hey, Button." Marin's voice came out wrong, and she fixed it. I'm just sorting socks. You'd be amazed how a sock situation gets away from a person." June looked at the bags. Then she looked at Marin, and she said, in the small, cracked voice she had spent 2 months not using, "You're going to leave, like the others." It was not a question this time. It was the fact she'd been waiting to be proven right about her whole grieving life. And she laid it down flat between them, and Marin felt it go into her like the cold of the marble underfoot. "June, they all go." The child's chin did not wobble. That was the unbearable part. The same dry-eyed steadiness her grandmother wore, learned young, learned wrong. "Mama went, and the ladies go, and Daddy goes on Thursday, and Grandma goes in her room. Everybody goes." She held up the dark phone. "So I keep this, because it can't go. It already went, so it can't again." She set it down on the cream-colored chair, very gently, as though it were the one fixed star. "You can go. I'm not going to hold your apron. I learned not to." And she turned to walk back down the hall, 6 years old, the loose ribbon undone again at the back of her head. And something in Marin Cole came apart that no number and no headline and no courthouse had ever managed to touch. "I learned not to, too," Marin said. June stopped. "I learned the exact same thing you did, a long time before you." Marin went down to the floor, right there among the duffel bags, so she wasn't looming. So it was just 2 people, low on the cold ground. "I had a little boy once. Not mine the regular way, mine the way that counts. And I lost him because I loved him too loud. And after that I made myself a rule, same as yours. Don't hold the apron. Don't reach for the good thing. Because reaching is how it gets grabbed back." Her own voice cracked now, and she let it. "I've kept that rule 11 years, Button. I waited tables, and I went home alone, and I never once let myself want to stay anywhere." And then a girl walked across a parking lot in the heat and held up a ribbon. And I have been breaking my own rule a little more every single day since. And it has scared me worse than anything in that file. June stood in the doorway with her back half turned, exactly her father's posture, doing her hardest, listening sideways. "So here's what I think we should do," Marin said. "I think we should both try being people who hold the apron, even though it's terrifying, even though everybody we've ever held has gone." She put out her hand, palm up, on the cold floor between them. "I'll go first. I'm scared, and I'm staying anyway. Your turn's whenever you're ready, no rush. I've got nowhere I'd rather be." The hall clock counted. The sprinklers hissed. And June Hale turned around and looked at the open hand a long, grave moment. And then she did not take it. She walked into it, the whole of her, and put her arms around Marin's neck and her face in the crook of it, and held on with both fists the way she'd held the apron in the diner, the way she'd held nothing since. "Don't go," she said into Marin's collar. "I'll hold yours. Hold mine." "I've got you," Marin said. "I've got you. I've got you. I'm not going anywhere." She didn't hear Vivian until the older woman spoke, and then she understood Vivian had been there a while, because the voice had already been undone before it found words. "I came to tell you to leave," Vivian Hale said. She stood in the hall in pale summer silk, dressed for the day, her pearls on now, her hair set, every armor back in its place and none of it holding, because she was looking at her granddaughter's arms around the diner girl's neck, and her own hand had gone to the bare place at her throat above the pearls, as though she could not feel them there. "I came up here," she went on, "with a speech, a very good one, about exposure and headlines and the family name, all of it true, all of it the thing I have used for 50 years to move people out of rooms I wanted them out of." She came 2 steps closer, slow, one hand finding the wall. "And then I heard you tell my granddaughter that you had a child you loved too loud and lost. And I thought of Kara in my garden laughing at me, telling me I could not buy back what was never for sale." Her voice did not break. It bent and held the whole way through. "I have spent 11 months keeping that child quiet, because quiet was the only grief I knew how to allow. My husband was quiet. I raised my son to be quiet. I took a telephone out of a sleeping girl's hands because loud frightened me more than gone did. And you walked in and let her be loud. And look," she gestured, helpless, at June. "Look what loud does. It holds on." She reached into the pocket of her silk and drew out a folded paper, and Marin saw it was the contract, the real one, Sloane's one, the one that had been sitting on a tablet downstairs an hour ago. "I had Sloane print this," Vivian said, "before any of this morning. I had it printed so I could refuse to sign as a witness, so I could make it die in committee, which is a thing I am very good at." She crouched, slow, her knees protesting, one hand on the wall, and set the paper on the cold floor beside Marin's hand and smoothed it flat. And then she took a pen from the same pocket, an expensive one, gold, and she signed her own name at the bottom in the line marked "Witness," her hand shaking so the letters came out larger than she'd have allowed in any other year of her life. "There," Vivian said. "That is my apology. And it costs me exactly what an apology should. Everyone in this house will know by noon that Vivian Hale put her name under the diner girls. The board will hear it. My friends will hear it. The women I have spent a lifetime being better than will hear it. And they will say I have gone soft in my grief. And they will be right. And I find I do not care." She got herself upright again, spine by spine, and looked down at the 2 of them on the floor. "Stay, Miss Cole. Not for the money. For her. And God help me, for me a little. Because you are the only person who has told me the truth in my own house in 11 months. And I have discovered I would rather be told the truth than be agreed with. Kara would have liked you enormously. She'd have called you Marin inside an hour, and me a fool for not seeing it." Her chin trembled once and steadied. "Welcome to the family, such as it is."
Such as it is becoming. And she pressed 2 fingers to her pearls, finding them there this time, and turned and went down the hall, ramrod straight, trailing one hand along the wall. And she did not let either of them see her face, which was, Marin understood, the most generous thing the woman knew how to give. Julian found them an hour later at the pool. It was Marin's idea, and it was the only idea she had. And she'd made June put on the frog boots, even though it was 80 degrees, because the boots were the bravest thing the child owned. They sat on the warm tile at the shallow end with their feet in the turquoise water, the sprinklers off now, the heat lying gold across the lawn, and Marin had the cracked phone and Julian's own phone side by side on a towel between them. "You're going to back it up," she told him when he came out across the grass in his shirt sleeves, the dark Thursday suit finally gone, blinking like a man who'd walked out of a long room.
"Right now, both of us watching, so nobody does it alone."
She held up the cracked phone.
"We play it once, careful, into yours, recording clean, and then it's safe forever. 1,000 copies, in the cloud and the vault and whatever else. And then June can wear this old one out to nothing, because the real Mama's voice will be somewhere it can't crack."
Julian lowered himself onto the tile. The water took his feet, and he flinched at the cool of it, and then went still. "I don't know if I can hear it on purpose," he said. "I've spent a year hearing it by accident."
"That's the whole difference," Marin said. "On purpose is the brave kind."
She looked at June.
"Button, you want to help your daddy be brave? You hold the old phone, I'll hold the new one. He just has to listen and not look away. Think he can do it?"
June considered her father with grave swim instructor eyes, her mother's eyes, and delivered her verdict.
"He can put his face in the water," she said. "Mama says everybody can. You just have to want to clap after."
Julian made a sound that was half the broken laugh and half the other thing, and pressed the back of his wrist to his mouth and nodded. So they played it. Once, careful, the cracked speaker straining, the warm, laughing voice spilling out over the turquoise water and the gold lawn.
"Say it for the camera, baby. Say hi. Say hi to future June."
And the baby's gurgle, and the laugh again, and then Marin stopped the clean recording on the new phone, and it was caught, safe, forever. And Kara Hale's 40 seconds would never wear out again. June listened to it on the old phone one more time just for herself, holding it to her ear with her feet kicking slow in the water. Then she did a thing none of them expected. She held the cracked phone out over the water to her father.
"You hold it now," she said. "I have lots now. You can have a turn."
Julian Hale took his late wife's voice from his daughter's hands, gently this time, the opposite of the night before, and he held it to his own ear, and he listened to her say, "Say hi," with his eyes shut and the summer sun on his face. And when he opened them, they were wet and unafraid, and he looked across the small body between them at the waitress who had told him a heron made his daughter laugh.
"Clap,"
June instructed him, watching the water.
"After a person does the brave thing, you clap. Those are the rules."
And Julian laughed, the whole way through this time, nothing empty left in it. And he clapped, for his wife, for his daughter, for the woman who'd walked across his life with a coffee pot, and the sound of it carried out flat over the warm lawn and startled a heron up off the far end of the pool, indignant, enormous, unfolding into the gold air. And June shrieked with delight and pointed and laughed her short, astonished laugh, hand flying to her own mouth. And for one held minute, the worst house in the county was the best one. They were married in the autumn, in the end, in Vivian's garden, in a dress Vivian did not pay for and would not have been seen choosing, which Vivian declared with enormous satisfaction was exactly as it should be. But the part Marin kept, the part she'd tell, came before that, on a Sunday in the last of the summer, when Julian drove her himself to Gloria's roadside the way he'd promised in the kitchen. June buckled in the back, the windows down because Marin had insisted, the hayfields gone gold, and the heat standing in sheets, and the cicadas so loud you could hear them over the engine of a car that cost more than the diner. The bell over the door rang. Gloria looked up from the griddle, took in the three of them, the funeral suit man in shirt sleeves now, the silent girl who came in talking, the waitress who'd left and come back, changed, and set down her spatula and put both flour-dusted hands on her hips. "Well," Gloria said, "took you long enough. Booth or counter?" "Booth," June said, before either adult could. "By the window. And the secret pancakes, the button ones, with the face. She climbed up onto the warm vinyl and folded her hands, prim as a churchgoer, then unfolded them because she was learning she didn't have to be. Don't make the face if I ask. Only make it if I don't ask. Those are the rules. Gloria looked at the child a long moment, and then at Marin, and something passed over her broad, kind face that she didn't bother to blink down. "Honey," she said, "I've been making that face for nobody for 22 years. I'd be honored." She jerked her chin at Julian. "You, funeral suit. You learned to smile yet? Or do I have to teach you that too?" "I'm working on it," Julian said. "I have excellent instruction." And he reached across the table, over his daughter's plate before it had even arrived, and took Marin's hand, warm from no coffee pot now, just warm, and held it where the whole counter could see, where Vivian would have priced it, and found, for once, that she could not. "Pink first," June told the sugar packets, lining them up, white and brown, and the pink ones moved to the front, the way a waitress had left them on the worst and best afternoon of all their lives. Outside the warm glass, the summer was turning, just at the edges, the first gold coming into the green, and a heron, or its cousin, stood one-legged in the field across the road, like it owned the place. "Sad's a winter thing," Marin said softly, to no one and to all of them. "And it's not winter," June said, not looking up from her sugar. "It's almost not even summer. So nobody's allowed." "Nobody's allowed," Marin agreed, and Gloria's button pancakes came out tiny and golden and stacked like coins, with a shy blueberry face nobody had asked for, and a small girl who'd had no words 2 months before told her father to clap. And he did. If this one warmed you, if you've ever loved somebody too loud and been afraid to reach for the good thing anyway, stay a while. There are more tablesides where this came from, more booths by more windows, more people who found out that the bravest thing a person can do is put their face in the water and want to clap after. Settle in, take the seat by the glass, and let the next one find you. We'll keep the coffee warm.